Welcome in. This is for you if you're in one of my courses and you're finding that your first assignment of the quarter is to get the title page for your paper done. Now, I also want you to frame up the structure. So let's talk about title page and why it is important to you and why you want to get this right the first time. First of all, your title. The title itself, it's got to be meaningful. Your title is not assignment one. Write for your professional audience. Write so that the paper that you produce is something that you can share with a colleague, a potential client, a potential new employer, and it's someone whom you'd like to impress with your ability to solve AI problems. So your title should convey the nature of the AI problem that you're solving. Let's illustrate this notion of crafting a good title with 3 specific examples. The first one is an example of a poor title, and this is a draft that I wrote over a year ago, and I submitted it to the reviewers, and they didn't like it. So that title was, reading it here, The 2D Cluster Variation Method, Initial Findings, and Topography Illustrations. And that was a poor title because even though the 2D Cluster Variation Method, 2D CVM for short, is fairly specific, it's in the ballpark of a topic, the notion of initial findings was too vague, too general, and topography illustrations, again, too vague, too general, too broad, and it wasn't succinct enough to get the reader a sense of what was going on. So the reviewers expressed their displeasure, as reviewers will, and I wrote a different draft. This was the final resubmitted version, and it's what actually got published. It was the 2D Cluster Variation Method, Topography Illustrations, and their enthalpy parameter correlations. And that made a whole lot more sense because I wasn't just broad scale hand waving on topographies, I was connecting them to something very specific, the enthalpy parameters. So that's what got published. Currently, I'm working on a different paper, and the provisional title that I've got is A Variational Approach to Parameter Estimation for Characterizing 2D Cluster Variation Method Topographies. And this gives the potential reader all sorts of very specific hooks. If they're interested in variational methods, that's a hook. If they're interested in the 2D cluster variation method, that's another hook. If they're interested in topographies for the 2D CVM, another one. And most importantly, that whole business of parameter estimation, which if you're into this work at all, is an important deep dive into how to work with the CVMs. So there are various hooks, all very specific, within that one title, and that's the kind of thing that you're shooting for. You want to give your reader motivation to read and a very specific context or preliminary classification of the value of your paper for their understanding. Makes sense. Your name, obvious enough. You want to, if you have a professional affiliation that you are willing to share with the world at large as your home residence, okay, you can put it on, but a lot of you might be thinking about a career transition, so you may not want to put your corporate name down. At the same time, don't put Northwestern. Absolutely do not put down Northwestern Master of Science capstone class or whatever class you're in, because you're not trying to do a student report. You're not going out to the world saying, oh, this is my collection of class assignments. You're trying to present yourself as, I'm an AI professional. This is some work that I've independently done, and it's because I'm interested in the problem, and here's how I approached it, and here's how I solved it. Not class assignment. So you don't want anything that mentions Northwestern, the program, the class, the assignment, at all whatsoever. So then what do you put down? Again, you're using this thing for portfolio and for positioning. So you hope that somebody will look at this. It'll take a little while before they look at it. We're going to have, hopefully, other things that will catch your intended audience's attention. But suppose that they finally work their way towards your paper. You want to have contact information, right? It's the most important thing that you can have. So you don't use your Northwestern email address, because by the time that you've graduated from the program and you're actively trying to connect with people and create your next career step, your Northwestern address is not where people will find you. You probably don't really want your work address unless you're just trying to do an internal development. So personal email address, your LinkedIn profile
URL so that people can find you via that and message you via LinkedIn, or create your own private domain, get your own private domain associated email address and use that. Of course, you've got to remember to check that every now and then. Figure out what you want. The important thing is that you're setting yourself up to be found by the people whom you want to find you, and you're trying to make it easy for them to find you well after your Northwestern experience is done. So,
folks, let's just close with a tiny little example. I'm again using my own paper that's in still draft formation. We're using this because I don't have to use somebody else's copyrighted material. So here we go. I've got two addresses that are being shown. One is for Themyscus Incorporated, that's my company, and the other is for Northwestern. I can use Northwestern as a secondary address because I'm not directing people to go there. Instead, if you'll observe, I've got that little dagger sign up above my name that directs people down to the "This is the contact information that you should use" section below, and that's where I tell people, oh, go use the Themyscus email address. So this is the kind of thing you want to set up. It's okay to use your school if that's the place where you're writing from, and even if you won't be there within a while, it's okay to give that as an indication of where you've done your work, provided that you give as a primary source someplace where you can be found. And that's the primary objective of your work right now, is to make yourself findable by those who want to know what you're doing. Folks, if you'd like to get some more videos on the whole subject of how to write your research paper, please check out the YouTube channel under my name, Aliana J. Moran, and find the playlist on writing your research paper. If you'd like to learn more about energy-based neural networks, please go to the Themyscus, that's Themesis, Incorporated YouTube channel. We've got all sorts of goodies and more being added frequently. This is Aliana Moran from Themyscus. We hope that you found these YouTubes useful.
thanks for joining me. We'll see you soon.